So last time I did a vlogging style video, people really liked it, kind of the day in the life type of stuff and just what I do day in and day out. So what I wanted to do in this video is break down actually going to Starbucks for different instances. So for example, when you're fasting, what can you go get at Starbucks, or what would I go get at Starbucks? Or if you're deep in keto and you just want a good treat, what would you get from Starbucks? Or if you are just looking for something a little bit different. I mean, just all kinds of things. We're gonna break down 3 different situations in which you might go to Starbucks. Now, this in no way, shape, or form is an endorsement or condoning Starbucks. I just understand that wherever you are in the world, more than likely, you can probably come across a Starbucks. But first and foremost, I gotta get some gas. So let's go ahead and do this. So obviously, I drive a diesel, and I do that just because we've got horses. I've had horses growing up. When I was growing up, I had 18 horses. We've got 2 horses now. It's just part of our lifestyle. But it's interesting though, because when we're talking about keto and we're talking about fasting, kind of a diesel gasoline analogy works really, really well. You see, diesel actually combusts naturally. It doesn't need a spark, right? So it's like you don't have a spark plug. Like in a gasoline car, you have a spark plug that ignites and creates combustion. With a diesel engine, there's a high heat, there's a high temperature that essentially allows that auto ignition. So that auto ignition basically makes it so that the engine is able to just generate enough heat to continually burn the fuel. That's almost exactly what's happening in like a keto or a fasting state. It's like you have created your body to be in such a state where you have such an internal combustion that's already occurring that the fat loss process already occurs. Now, what's interesting is that when you look at like a gasoline engine, the exhaust in a gasoline engine is exceptionally hotter than the exhaust in a diesel engine. So it's kind of interesting when you look at it like that too. That's implying that it's burning a little less clean, right? You're creating more heat, whereas diesel is creating less heat when it burns. It's burning cleaner. So it's almost like, I use the analogy when I'm talking in my videos sometimes about like natural gas and how ketones burn a lot cleaner. Ketones, quite honestly, burn a little bit more like diesel fuel. And contrary to what some people will say, just because diesels are big and they might be, gas guzzlers compared to a Prius, the thing is that by and large, they get tremendous gas mileage for such a large vehicle. So you're kind of looking the same way with ketones. You're getting like 9 calories per overall gram of fat consumed. You're getting a lot more bang for the buck. Now, granted, you might be moving a bigger vehicle, but that's irrelevant. So anyway, I just thought that was an interesting thing to break down while I'm pumping gas. I don't know. Maybe I'm weird. I guess I am. All right, so now that I filled this sucker up, I don't even know if I can afford to go to Starbucks. So, but we'll make it work. Okay. So the first thing that I want to go do is I'm going to go just through a drive-through Starbucks, and I'm going to get a fasting beverage. So I'm going to get one that I would normally get if I was, say, just in the middle of a fast, maybe mid-morning or so, and I wanted a little bit of caffeine, and I just didn't want any ambiguity with stuff. I just wanted to have it be pretty straightforward, like no artificial sweeteners, nothing like that. So we'll break it down. The fact is, obviously, when you're fasting, you want to keep yourself occupied as much as possible, especially if you're new to intermittent fasting. It can be really difficult because your mind is just going all over the place. So one of the things that I recommend is that you don't overstimulate yourself with a bunch of caffeine. Use enough caffeine to mobilize fat, but if you overstimulate yourself with caffeine, you end up just honestly with the jitters a lot, and it ends up making you crave things worse. Because when you do come down from that caffeine crash, you're looking for that extra dopamine hit, and you start seeking out things and you crave things. And if you're like me and you battle with anxiety and you get kind of anxious over things, the last thing you want to do is be loading yourself up with tons of caffeine. So what I'm going to show you is an interesting breakdown, something that I discovered that you can do when you go to Starbucks to make life a little bit easier, but still be able to get the caffeine fix that you want, still be able to get the taste that you want, but some added benefits. It's one of the few things that I would actually say is totally good to go at Starbucks. So let's go ahead and hit the drive-through, and I'll show you what I order. All right, let's do this. So let's see if they can handle my order. Sometimes I am Mr. Complicated when I go to Starbucks. I hate bringing people with me to Starbucks because they always make fun of me with my complicated orders.
Good afternoon, welcome to Starbucks. I'll be with you in just a second.
All right, thanks.
All right, thank you so much for waiting. What can I get started for you?
Yeah, can I get a Trenta half black, half green iced tea with no water and light ice, please?
All right, no water, Sorry, my computer screen likes blacking out on me.
No worries.
So start the black iced tea, no water, no liquid cane sugar, green tea instead of water. Anything else today, man?
Nope, that's it, man.
All right, I'll see you at the window for 3:45. Okay.
Cool. Thank you. All right. So I'll save the reasoning behind all this for when I have the drink. The cool thing is like you should know, with any of the teas that you get at Starbucks, they always cut them with water. So it's super easy to just order anything as a concentrate if you want a little bit more power to it. So like if you were to go get a black iced tea, they're usually cutting it with 50% water. Like it's just their standard protocol to go tea and then they cut it with water. So you can always order it with no water and then you end up with it a little bit stronger. Now in the case of this, like I'm getting black tea and green tea. So half black, half green. And what's happening there is instead of adding the water into the drink, they're adding green tea into the drink. So they're gonna add green tea concentrate. So basically I'm getting black tea concentrate and green tea concentrate, and then I get it with light water or with no water and light ice. So I get it with light ice just because otherwise they jip you. $14 right here. You end up getting 70% ice. So, well, now we wait.
All right, 3:45.
Cool.
Need a receipt?
No, it's all right, man.
I'll be out in a second, okay?
Okay, cool. I think it would have been faster for me to just go inside. Oh well. The other thing you guys might have noticed is that when I ordered this, make sure you say unsweetened. So I don't know why Starbucks hasn't gotten with the times yet, but it's default for them to add cane syrup. So awesome. Thanks, man.
Have a nice day, all right?
You too. So it's default for them to add syrup to it. That's why it actually says no liquid cane sugar. It's default for them to add the cane sugar, so you always have to order it unsweetened. You guys know that I'm a big fan of tea anyway. So the reason that I got half black, half green. So black tea has a much higher caffeine content. With black tea, the tea leaves are a little bit older. So they mature, they get more caffeine in them. It's pretty much what happens in a lot of cases. But it's the fact that they're actually essentially cooked for longer, so they actually end up having a little bit more acid. That's why it's a little bit more bitter. With green tea, it's a fresher, younger green tea leaf. So like matcha, for instance, is one that's a very young green tea leaf, like super, like they're baby green tea leaves. So they end up having a higher amount of polyphenols and things like that in it. In this case, the nice thing is having the theanine, which is in green tea, sort of counteracts some of the stimulant side that you'd get from the black tea. So what I mean by that is theanine is going to help promote basically the production of what's called gamma aminobutyric acid. And I talk about that in all my videos all the time. It's called GABA. GABA helps you relax. So normally if you have some caffeine, like especially in a fasted state, you're gonna be a little bit amped up and you might find yourself getting a little bit jittery. So like I think really clear when I'm fasting, but sometimes if I have too much caffeine, it like loops around and my brain gets so overactive and I have so many ketones going into my head, I get super hyperactive and it's hard to even concentrate. Have you ever experienced that? Like when you're fasting and you're in keto and it's like you have too much brain energy? So this happens to the theanine, at least in the green tea, when you have half black, half green, it cuts it. So you get the energy without the anxiety. It's pretty darn interesting, but also theanine, I've done videos on theanine too, but theanine counteracts the vasoconstriction of the black tea. So what I mean by that is black tea has strong vasoconstriction properties. It's the caffeine, so basically it causes your blood vessels to shrink. Now, when you're fasting, you probably have noticed that you get a little bit cold sometimes. It's kind of just a natural process. The reason you get cold is vasoconstriction takes place. Basically, your blood volume is going down a little bit, so your blood vessels kind of constrict. Caffeine exacerbates that. Caffeine would constrict them even more. Theanine counteracts that. So how this works from a fat burning side of things, we're mobilizing fat, okay, with the caffeine. Okay, we're also activating that cyclic adenosine monophosphate. So we're activating that CAMP, getting a lot of fat burning effect, but now we're opening up the blood vessels to be able to get a little bit more in the way of that delivery. The fatty acids are getting mobilized more. Now I did talk about in one of my videos that fatty acids can directly fuel the muscle. So it doesn't have to go to ketone production. Ketones can produce energy for the brain, glucose produces energy for other parts of the body, and then free fatty acids can directly actually fuel the muscles. Okay, now they still have to go through a process in the liver, but they don't have to get converted into ketones. So it's kind of interesting. So this is my Superpower fasting drink. I'll drink this up until about maybe 2 p.m. After 2 p.m., I start to cut my caffeine out because I notice that it does affect my sleep. And I actually did just a recent video talking about that, where like 6 hours before sleep is when data starts to show that it does affect your sleep a little bit. Anyhow, just a quick little tip. So now, even though it's not exactly the most practical thing, I'm gonna go to another Starbucks and I'm gonna show you a drink that you can get if you're deep in keto, or if you're maybe in your first couple of weeks of keto and you're trying to get your fat content up a little bit more. It's a specific style of ordering a drink, and I'm also gonna show you how I would actually order the caffeine in that case. And I have a good reasoning behind that too. So let's rock and roll with that. In the meantime, let's sit in some California congestion. All right, so as soon as I can intertwine through this California chaos here. So what I'm gonna order here is a drink that I wouldn't recommend you get unless you can really handle dairy. Now, full disclaimer, I get this drink about twice a year, but I know a lot of people that are in keto consume a lot of dairy. So this particular drink is gonna be okay if you're already accustomed to dairy. If I were to have this, I'm gonna give it to a member of my team because I would probably be pretty uncomfortable because I don't do dairy very often, but I still think it's a really interesting way to order something at Starbucks. So again, like, we're all human, right? Like, you can't order like Thomas DeLauer all the time. Like, you're not gonna live like just perfectly in this box of keto, right? But at least with this drink, you can be on a road trip, you can feel like you can get the right amount of calories in. People always think when you order a latte that you have to order it with 2% or skim milk. But there's a specific way of ordering a latte that actually works really well with keto and actually makes it taste phenomenal. Now, full disclaimer again, there's a lot of calories in it. The reason I'm not a big fan of dairy, also, by the way, isn't because of the lactose. It's because of the specific proteins that are in it. The proteins are hard to digest. Okay, so we're talking like A1 casein proteins. Talk about BCM7, basically an opioid. Very difficult for the body to break down. That's why even cottage cheese and stuff like that, although it's a good protein and works on keto, it is very hard for the human body to break it down from an immune standpoint, not even from a digestion standpoint. So I think this lady's ordering like a lot of stuff, so we might be sitting here a while. So, oh well. All right, time to order.
Hi, sorry, how can I help you?
Yeah, what's going on? Can I just get a tall half-calf breve latte? But with the caffeinated portion, can I have it be blonde? So half blonde.
I do apologize. Our blonde machine's currently down right now for maintenance. We have one of our service guys working on it.
Okay, so
I can do half calf. I can do regular espresso or decaf espresso for you.
all right. So wait, I'm sorry. What machine is down? I'm sorry.
So the blonde espresso that you're looking for.
Oh, the blonde.
Half decaf, half blonde.
Okay,
blonde because our machine's being
Gotcha. Okay, no worries. So let's just do half calf, regular. You know what? Regular shot. No, don't worry about the blonde. But then, yeah, can we do it as a breve, please?
Okay, so a grande half-calf breve latte.
Just a tall.
Tall.
Yep.
Got it. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
That will be 385.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Darn it. All right, so real world experience. You don't always get your complicated order. I'll explain after I get the drink why I would normally go with the blonde, and it'll all make sense. But basically, breve, what this means is that they're making it with half and half. So now there's some ambiguity with breve. Some make breve with full cream, some make it with half and half. I believe Starbucks just makes it with half and half. So as you know, like dairy in general, if you were to get it with milk, it would be a lot of sugar. Okay, milk has lactose in it, still a sugar. So obviously not keto friendly. If we get it made breve, then it's gonna be made with half and half. So even in a tall, you're probably looking at like 2 grams of carbs here. I don't recommend getting any of the sweeteners or anything like that, like the caramel sweeteners or anything like that, because they're gonna have a bunch of sucralose in it. I'm not anti-sucralose, but we still have to remember that we're going to have somewhat of an excitotoxin response. It is going to cause us to be a little bit more jumpy with the cravings and things like that. So keep it simple. That way, if you wanted to, you can always get those little monk fruit sweeteners like they have here. Just I think they use the whole earth sweetener. It's like half monk fruit, half stevia, and then some erythritol. Those are the way to go. If you just got 2 of those in there, you'd be fine. You'd have a nice tasty treat. But again, realistically, I added up the calories in this. You're looking like 400-ish if it's like true breve. So that's a lot of calories in just a tall. So be careful with that. But I'll explain the blonde roast and why I do half calf here in just a second. Oh, she's challenging her change.
Do you have 100 pennies, miss?
So I'm not gonna lie, when it comes to getting my coffee, I'm kind of an anxious person. And this person's going really slow. And it's irking me. I'm sure she's she's challenging her order. Sorry guys. Honestly, she looks like a really nice lady. So I'm not discounting that at all. I just want my coffee. Even though I'm not going to drink this. It's like stimulus response. I'm going through a drive-through and I want my coffee, so I'm like getting all nervous about it. I need to practice my own breathing techniques. Cool technique, by the way. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, exhale for 8. Do that 3 times, puts you right back into parasympathetic nervous system. So you're actually legitimately calms you down. Right. How's it going? Okay. Cool. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you. You too. That was serious eye contact. All right. So, spending a lot of money at Starbucks today. Now we're going to go across town for something super special that you may or may not have at your hometown Starbucks. But okay, the reason that I got this as a blonde, even though their blonde espresso machine was broken, the reason that I got this was because the blonde espresso has significantly, well, I shouldn't say significantly, but it has a good amount more caffeine in it. So that's fine and dandy, but it's more so about the acid content and the bitterness. So because it has, what happens with blonde roast is they don't roast it for quite as long. So it ends up being blonde. So they don't roast it to being medium, dark, or Starbucks style, which is generally burnt. They keep it nice and light. Starbucks blonde, I would consider about the equivalent of a normal coffee shop's medium roast. What that means is it's gonna have a slightly higher caffeine content, but it's not bitter. Now, I almost always get a half calf because I don't like having a bunch of caffeine all at once in this particular case, especially if it's like midday. So what happens is, if I were to get decaf, the very process of extracting caffeine from the bean requires the bean to ultimately get bitter. If you've ever noticed, like, decaf generally tastes bitter. You don't get a smooth, low acid decaf. It just doesn't happen. So if I get straight decaf, or if I were to get decaf as a regular half calf, so decaf plus regular shot, it's still too bitter for my liking, and a lot of acid, hard on the teeth, hard on the gut. And also the roasting process in general brings out a lot of toxins if it's overcooked. So at least if I go with a blonde, I find that it neutralizes it. So I go blonde and decaf, and it ends up coming out about the same as a regular, as if I never had decaf in there. So works out really, really well. This way I'm only having like 100 milligrams of caffeine. It's nothing crazy. It's just enough to get a little energy boost. Again, a lot of calories in this. So it's something that you're not gonna wanna drink in the morning, and you're not gonna wanna drink right after a workout because your insulin sensitivity is gonna be high. So again, I personally would only get this a couple times a year, but if you're going keto and you just need a good treat and you need a good amount of fat in there, that's gonna be a good route for you. So I'm gonna go across town to where I know there's another Starbucks that has something pretty unique that's kind of my go-to, and I'll explain the process of this particular coffee and why it's good for a couple of different scenarios. All right, so here we go. All right, we're at the secret spot. So no guarantee that you're gonna have these at your Starbucks, but this is my jam, okay? Doesn't work while you're fasting, but just show you what's up.
Hi, welcome to Starbucks. Please start for today.
Yeah, can I just get a tall nitro cold brew?
Nitro cold brew?
Yeah, with like maybe 1.5 inches of almond milk and 2 stevia, please.
All right, and then what was it? Sorry.
2 stevia.
And 2 stevias. And then I'll put it in a grande cup for you.
Oh, sweet.
Okay, anything else for you?
Nope, that's it.
$3.85, thank you.
Cool, thank you. They put it in a grande cup for me. What that means is that they actually put enough almond milk in there. So one of the things that you're gonna find, this is just a tip, if you get anything with almond milk at Starbucks, you generally have to tell them to make sure they shake the almond milk, because otherwise you're going to end up with clumps in it. And we might get a perfect example here, we might not. I think this gal has rung up my order before because she knows she puts it in a grande cup, so she puts enough almond milk, but I'll kind of show you what I mean, and I'll explain everything in a second. This is something that I would get, like, just getting a little coffee fix throughout the day, like no real need of it.
Hi, this is me $3.95. How are you?
Good, how you doing?
Good.
Thank you. Perfect, thank you. Thank you. All right, they nailed it. So a lot of times, if they don't shake the almond milk, it pools at the bottom and it looks so clumpy and crusty. It's almost borderline disturbing. And you have to tell them, like, hey, can you go back and shake the almond milk? Like, a lot of times they'll like just kind of give it a little tilt. It's like, no, you need to violently shake the almond milk. JR, the videographer, you remember when we were in Park City in Utah and like I had to literally shake the almond milk for them?
Oh, yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, that's looking much better. I'm only like $225 an hour if you want to hire me to just like. Well, ask that.
Like, no, like you need to aggressively, violently shake it, because the good thing about their almond milk is at least they're not using like carrageenan or any of the things in there that would normally, or guar gum or anything like that would actually require you to not have to shake it. So that's the benefit. The downside is that they actually have to shake it. Now, the other downside with Starbucks almond milk is don't be fooled. It is not unsweetened almond milk. Okay, so if you get an almond milk latte, you can expect to have like 12 to 16 grams of carbs in there. It is not unsweetened. So that means they have a little bit of sugar in there to basically kind of counteract the blandness of almond milk. So only get it when you're gonna have it in a small amount. So like here, I ordered a tall Nitro cold brew, okay, so cold brew coffee with 1.5 inches of almond milk added to it, and then 2 stevia. Okay, that makes this drink taste phenomenal. Okay, good amount of caffeine in it. It's definitely a good pre-workout. I would get it without the almond milk if I was training fasted. Okay, the almond milk would technically break a fast, but this is something like if I'm doing a borderline fast or a liquid fast, like this will be perfect. I'll just have this in place of breakfast. There's like maybe 40 calories, if that. Nitro cold brew. It is regular cold brew coffee, but all that happens is they infuse nitrogen into it. When you infuse nitrogen into it, you create micro bubbles. So nitrogen is what's called an inert gas, and I did a video on this too. An inert gas, it has no like elemental effect. I mean, it's just a pure elemental nitrogen in its gas form. It's not doing anything in the body. It doesn't even mix with this. It creates micro bubbles. That's why you get that cap, that foam cap. So it's super smooth. Now it also displaces a little bit of the oxygen. What that means is that you're not only having a smoother coffee, you're having a less antioxidant or a more powerful antioxidant coffee. So you're having less oxidative stress on your body. So it's a lot smoother, it's less acid, and it tastes better. And the nice thing about cold brew is when you have cold brew coffee, you're not leaching out a lot of the inorganic compounds. You're not leaching out as many of the toxins because you're brewing it with cold water. So the hot water separates and expands. Hey, look, a G-Wagon. We were just talking about those. But anyway, inside joke. When you actually have that happen, it makes it so you're not extracting the toxins out of it. So it does make it a little bit better. This is just one of my favorite drinks, and I've shown a lot of people this drink. It's so simple. Nitro coffee is the bomb. I've gone so far as wanting to get one in my office just so that I can go to it all the time. But the problem is then I would be so caffeinated, I'd be talking so fast in my videos that no one would ever be able to understand. You'd have to slow the video down. So I hope that this helped you out. Hope it was a little bit fun just to kind of cruise around, do something a little bit different. Again, if you like these style of videos, you like being a little bit more down and real and just kind of learning firsthand, just put them down in the comment section below. So just to recap, half black, half green, okay? We've got the Breve Latte, half calf with blonde espresso as one of them. And then we've got the Nitro Cold Brew with 1.5 inches of almond milk and 2 stevia monk fruit packets, which is the standard healthy sweetener from Starbucks. Still has some erythritol in it, so technically I would say it would break a fast. All right, comments down below. As always, I will see you in the next video.
Cool.
Cool. Matt?